Mystery grows after ninth scientist linked to sensitive US research passes away under mysterious circumstances. The quiet passing of Michael David Hicks marked another unsettling moment in a growing pattern that has begun to concern observers across the United States. On the 30th of July, 2023, the respected research scientist, known for his decades of work at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, unexpectedly passed at the age of 59. What made his case particularly unusual was not only the suddenness of his passing, but the absence of publicly shared details surrounding its cause. No official explanation was provided, and there appeared to be no widely available record of further examination, leaving behind an air of unanswered questions. Hicks had built a remarkable career, contributing to more than 80 scientific publications and playing key roles in missions that expanded humanity's understanding of comets and asteroids. His involvement in the DART project, which explored the possibility of redirecting potentially dangerous space objects, placed him at the forefront of planetary defense research. He also contributed to the Deep Space One mission, a pioneering effort that tested advanced spacecraft technologies during a flyby of a comet. His work carried both scientific and strategic importance, linking him to projects that extended beyond simple observation and into the realm of technological capability. In the years surrounding his passing, other individuals connected to similar fields began to experience equally mysterious circumstances. In July 2024, Frank Mywald, a longtime colleague of Hicks and a highly regarded researcher at JPL, also passed unexpectedly at the age of 61. Much like Hicks, there was little public information provided, and the event was marked only by a brief online acknowledgement. Despite his significant contributions, including leading research that could help detect signs of life beyond Earth, his passing seemed to fade quietly into obscurity. Then, on the 16th of February, 2026, astrophysicist Carl Grillmeier was discovered outside his home in a deeply unsettling situation. Known for his involvement in major space telescope missions and his contributions to identifying water on distant worlds, Grillmeier's work bridged the gap between scientific discovery and technological application. His research, particularly in infrared space observation, was closely aligned with systems also used in advanced tracking technologies, further intertwining civilian space exploration with broader national interests. Around the same period, other figures linked to advanced research fields began to vanish or experience similarly unexplained fates. Monica Reza, a newly appointed director within JPL, disappeared in June of 2025, shortly after beginning her work on innovative materials for rocket engines. Not long after, a retired general with connections to advanced aerospace and classified programs vanished on the 27th of February, 2026, leaving behind a trail of speculation about the nature of his knowledge and its potential significance. Observers began to note the connections between these individuals, particularly their involvement in areas that overlapped with both space exploration and defense-related technologies. The overlap between asteroid tracking systems, missile guidance, and advanced propulsion research created a complex web of shared expertise. Within this context, the absence of clear explanations surrounding these events began to feel less like coincidence and more like a pattern that had yet to be fully understood. The passing of Nuno Loureiro in December of 2025 added another layer to the growing concern. His groundbreaking work in nuclear fusion had positioned him as a leading figure in a field with enormous potential implications. His sudden loss, under circumstances that raised further questions, contributed to a broader narrative that has echoed quietly among researchers and analysts. Taken together, these events form a pattern that continues to draw attention. The individuals involved were not only highly accomplished, but were also connected through their work on technologies that could shape the future of both exploration and security. Mysterious kitchen image. This photograph, captured in near total darkness, presents a moment that feels both ordinary and deeply unsettling at the same time. Taken inside a quiet home, the image shows a dimly lit kitchen and living area, illuminated only by a faint light. At first glance, the scene appears still and empty, as though nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. However, upon closer inspection, something emerges from the shadows that cannot be easily explained. Standing in the doorway of the kitchen is a tall, shadowy figure. Its outline is unmistakably human, yet its presence feels unnatural, as if it does not fully belong within the space. The figure appears motionless, its dark form blending into the surrounding darkness while still remaining clearly visible. Its posture is calm, almost deliberate, as though it is aware of being observed, yet chooses not to move. The owner of the photograph had long reported hearing strange sounds coming from the kitchen, subtle disturbances that never seemed to have a clear source. Night after night, these noises continued, creating a quiet sense of unease within the home. Eventually, curiosity overcame hesitation, leading to the decision to capture an image using a phone's night mode feature, hoping to reveal what could not be seen with the naked eye. What the camera captured confirmed that something had indeed been present. The figure's appearance in the photograph suggests that whatever had been making those sounds was not simply imagination or coincidence. The clarity of its form, despite the darkness, raises questions about how long it had been there, unseen yet not entirely hidden. Mysterious sorority image. This photograph, first uploaded more than 11 years ago, initially appears to capture a light-hearted and ordinary moment. A young woman stands outside during what is described as a sorority bid day. The setting feels warm and familiar, with nothing immediately suggesting anything unusual. It is only upon closer inspection, when the image is carefully examined and zoomed in, that something far more unsettling reveals itself. In the window behind the woman, partially obscured by shadow, a pale face can be seen staring outward. The figure appears still, almost unnaturally so, with features that seem faint yet unmistakably present. Its expression is difficult to interpret, but its gaze appears fixed directly toward the camera, as though it is aware of being observed. The contrast between the bright outdoor scene and the dim interior behind the glass makes the figure stand out in a way that feels unnatural, as if it does not fully belong within the space. What makes the image even more mysterious is the claim from the person who captured it. According to them, no one was inside the house at the time the photograph was taken. The room behind the window should have been empty, yet the presence of the figure suggests otherwise. This detail has left many questioning how such an image could exist at all. Over the years, the photograph has circulated quietly, with little additional information ever coming to light. The lack of context has only deepened the mystery, allowing the image to stand on its own as something unexplained. Mysterious trail camera image. This strange image captured by a trail camera in the United States has left many people deeply unsettled, especially those who have studied it closely. Taken during the darkness of night, the photograph appears to show a tall, humanoid figure standing among the trees. Its shape is thin and elongated, with limbs that seem far longer than anything normally seen in nature. While at first glance it could be mistaken for part of the surrounding forest, the man who owns the property insists that no such tree exists in that location, making the figure's presence even more difficult to explain. For months leading up to the capture, the man reported hearing unusual sounds echoing through the woods near his home. These noises did not resemble typical wildlife, and they often occurred during quiet hours when the area would normally be still. Even more concerning, animals that were once frequently recorded by the trail camera had suddenly disappeared, as if something had disturbed the natural balance of the area. The image itself only deepens the mystery. The figure appears slightly blurred, yet its outline is distinct enough to suggest form and movement. It stands just beyond the trees, partially concealed, as though observing rather than wandering. The unnatural proportions of its body create a sense that it does not belong within the environment it occupies. Those who have examined the photograph believe it may represent something unknown, something rarely seen, and even more rarely captured. The combination of the strange noises, the absence of wildlife, and the appearance of this figure suggests that whatever was present that night was not ordinary, leaving behind a lingering sense that something unexplained had briefly revealed itself. Mysterious Appalachian video. This unsettling video captured in the Appalachian Mountains has quickly spread across social media, leaving viewers deeply disturbed by what appears to be an encounter that defies ordinary explanation. In the footage, a woman stands at a man's door late at night, knocking insistently and pleading to be let inside. Her voice carries urgency, yet something about her presence feels strangely off, as though it does not belong in the quiet stillness of the surrounding area. The man, aware of local warnings that caution against opening doors to unknown visitors, refuses and instead tells her to contact the authorities. What follows is what has unsettled viewers the most. The woman's expression shifts into an unnatural smile, one that appears emotionless and fixed as she stares directly through the glass. Without another word, she turns and walks away into the darkness. According to the man, she vanished shortly after, leaving no trace behind. The encounter has since been described as more than a simple visit, but something far more mysterious. Mysterious funeral image. The mysterious photograph has long unsettled those who have come across it, not only because of what it appears to show, but because of the circumstances surrounding the moment it was taken. Captured on the same day as a family funeral, the image was meant to preserve a quiet and emotional memory. 3 women, dressed in light clothing, stand together in front of a home, their expressions reflecting the weight of the day. Yet behind them, something else appears, something that was not noticed at the time the photo was taken. Standing in the background is a tall, dark figure, dressed entirely in black and wearing a distinct hat. Unlike the others in the image, this figure lacks visible detail, appearing almost featureless, as though it is made from shadow rather than substance. Its presence does not blend naturally into the scene. Instead, it stands out in a way that feels deliberate, as if it occupies a space separate from the rest of the world captured in the photograph. Those who have examined the image more closely have noticed something even more unusual. When adjusting brightness and contrast, faint elements of the background can be seen through the figure, suggesting that it is not entirely solid. This semi-transparent quality aligns with descriptions often associated with shadow entities, particularly one known as the Hat Man. Unlike other shadow figures, the Hat Man is said to have a more defined outline and a recognizable silhouette, most notably the presence of a hat. What adds to the unease is the timing connected to the photograph. Taken during a period of grief, it is said that within a few days, one of the women in the image also passed on, deepening the sense that something unseen may have been present during that moment. Mysterious apparition captured inside an old home. This photograph captures a moment that feels both ordinary and deeply unsettling, frozen in time on a quiet evening outside a home built in the 1930s. Taken through a glass door, the image reveals a dimly lit kitchen interior, but what stands within that space is far from expected. A tall, shadow-like figure appears near the center of the room, its form elongated and vaguely human, yet lacking any clear features. It seems to stand with quiet stillness, as though aware of its surroundings, yet detached from them in a way that feels unnatural. The owner of the home had long described experiencing what they called shadow friends, figures that would move silently through the house, drifting past walls and doorways with an almost curious presence. These forms were never fully seen, only glimpsed, as though they existed just beyond the edge of perception. However, on this particular night, something changed. As the homeowner approached the door, the figure did not disappear. Instead, it remained, giving just enough time for a photograph to be taken, as if it had chosen to be seen. Inside the home, the reaction of the family pet added another layer to the mystery. The cat, usually calm, became intensely focused on the figure, positioning itself between its owner and the door in a protective stance. This behavior suggested that whatever stood inside was not entirely invisible to the natural senses, but something that could be felt or perceived beyond sight alone. Mysterious CCTV footage. In late March 2024, residents of Sumter County, South Carolina, found themselves at the center of a mystery that felt like something straight out of a horror film. A strange masked figure began appearing after dark in the Meadowcroft subdivision, quietly approaching homes and frightening locals. The individual was captured on a surveillance camera, standing close to the side of a house, staring directly into the lens. The mask they wore was unsettling in its simplicity, a pale face devoid of expression, with only hollow black eye sockets and nostril holes visible. The sight was enough to leave those in the home shaken and has since rattled the entire neighborhood. The Sumter County Sheriff's Office soon launched an official investigation into what they described as suspicious activity. Authorities released the eerie photograph to the public, a decision that quickly spread the story across social media. The masked character immediately drew comparisons to fictional figures like the Slender Man, whose faceless white visage shares similarities with the unsettling mask seen in the surveillance image. What makes the encounter even more unnerving is that no crime was reported during the incident. The figure did not attempt to break into the home or cause damage, but the act of standing outside, silently, with such a menacing presence was more than enough to deeply unsettle the family inside. The exact date of the incident was March 24th, when the image was recorded outside a residence on Caitlin Drive. According to investigators, the residents of the home were terrified when they realized someone had been lurking so close to their door. With Meadowcroft subdivision located only 40 miles east of Columbia, the story quickly spread through neighboring communities, and people began reporting their fears online. Many speculated on the identity of the masked figure, with some believing it might be a local prankster, while others thought it was something far stranger and more sinister. Despite police efforts, the investigation has yet to produce any definitive answers. Officers canvassed the area, spoke with neighbors, and attempted to locate the suspect, but the masked individual seemed to vanish into the night. No additional sightings have been confirmed since the photograph was released, leaving many to wonder if the incident was a one-time occurrence or part of something larger. The lack of answers has only fueled speculation, with theories ranging from a disturbed individual deliberately trying to frighten families to those who suggest there could be a deeper, more mysterious explanation. For residents of the area, the fear remains real. A person wandering through quiet suburban streets after dark, wearing such a bizarre and faceless mask, is a deeply unsettling thought. Parents have urged their children to remain indoors during the evenings, and homeowners are paying closer attention to their security systems, wary of another strange encounter. What makes the case particularly haunting is its mystery. If the masked figure had committed a crime, the act itself would be easier to categorize and investigate. But the absence of any illegal action leaves it suspended between harmless mischief and something far more disturbing. The blank mask, captured so clearly in the surveillance image, seems to represent the very mystery of the case, emotionless, unknowable, and without explanation. The mystery passengers. In the months following the devastating earthquake and tsunami that struck northeastern Japan on the 11th of March 2011, a strange and haunting series of reports emerged from the coastal town of Ishinomaki. This community, one of the hardest hit by the disaster, became the focus of an unsettling mystery that continues to baffle residents and researchers alike. Taxi drivers began recounting extraordinary encounters with passengers who appeared to be real but were later revealed to be apparitions. These ghostly passengers often appeared as dark, shadow-like figures lingering near the roadside, waiting to be picked up like any ordinary fare. Drivers reported seeing them approach their vehicles, and in some cases, surveillance cameras even captured faint images of figures getting into the cars. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The passengers would quietly enter the vehicle and provide a destination, but as the driver began to converse, a chilling realization would occur. The seats were empty, and the passengers had vanished into thin air. Many of the destinations given by these apparitions were places deeply connected to the tsunami. Some requested to be taken to areas where entire neighborhoods had once stood, now nothing more than wastelands of debris. Others asked to be driven to homes that had been swept away. In each case, the eerie silence and the sudden disappearance left drivers shaken. Yet these stories were not isolated. Multiple taxi drivers across Ishinomaki shared similar experiences, reinforcing the belief that these encounters were genuine manifestations of the many lives lost in the tragedy. What makes these events especially compelling is the cultural and spiritual backdrop of Japan. In Japanese tradition, there is a deep reverence for the spirits of those who have passed on, and it is believed that restless souls sometimes linger in the world of the living. Given the scale of the tragedy in 2011, many in Ishinomaki and beyond came to believe that the apparitions seen by taxi drivers were the spirits of those who had not yet found peace. These spirits, confused and still searching for their way home, may have reached out to the living in the only way they could, by entering taxis and asking to be taken to familiar places. Some of the drivers later admitted that they did not feel fear, but rather sadness and compassion. They viewed these passengers as people longing for closure, still caught between worlds. A few drivers even kept the meters running out of respect, recording unpaid fares as a symbolic act of kindness for the souls they had carried. For them, these encounters were not just eerie experiences, but reminders of the shared grief and the enduring human connection that transcends even the boundary between life and death. To this day, the reports remain unexplained. No rational investigation has been able to fully account for the consistency of the testimonies or the strange recordings on security footage. For many in Japan, the ghostly passengers of Ishinomaki represent more than a mystery. They embody the lingering sorrow of an event that changed the nation forever. Whether seen as spirits seeking peace, echoes of trauma imprinted on the land, or inexplicable phenomena, the tales of the taxi drivers continue to remind the world of the human stories behind the great disaster. The ghost passengers of Ishinomaki stand as one of the most haunting and poignant mysteries of modern times. They reveal not only the profound sense of loss felt by a community, but also the possibility that the departed may still linger, reaching out in subtle ways to be acknowledged and remembered. The Mystery of the Ghostly Vision by Francisco de Goya, rediscovered in 2016 after being lost for 90 years. In 2016, the art world was shaken by the rediscovery of a long-lost painting by Francisco de Goya, known as Ghostly Vision. Hidden from the public eye for 90 years, this work resurfaced like an apparition from the past, further deepening the mystery surrounding Goya's most mysterious and unsettling creations, the infamous black paintings. The resurfacing of this piece not only reignited interest in the Spanish master's late works, but also revived the legends and unexplained tales that have always clung to these haunting canvases. The black paintings were originally executed directly onto the plaster walls of Goya's residence, the Quinta del Sordo, during the later years of his life. Their raw, unpolished intensity reflects a man grappling with darkness, solitude, and the shadows of human existence. Figures emerge distorted and spectral, their gazes lost in realms beyond the living. Scholars agree that Goya never intended these works for public exhibition, which only adds to their aura of secrecy. They were later transferred to canvas in the 19th century, though much of their original context was inevitably altered in the process. Among them, Ghostly Vision stands out as particularly haunting. The painting depicts an ethereal figure suspended between the realms of life and afterlife, its features blurred as though caught between dimensions. The rediscovery of this work after so many decades sparked speculation about why it had disappeared in the first place. Some believed it had been deliberately hidden, while others suggested it was misplaced during the turbulent years of the 20th century. Whatever the reason, its sudden reappearance reinforced the strange magnetism these works exert on viewers and historians alike. What gives the black paintings, and Ghostly Vision in particular, their enduring mystique is not only their disturbing imagery, but also the tales that surround them. For years, rumors have persisted of ghostly presences linked to these works. Visitors to galleries where they hang have reported feelings of unease, sudden chills, or the uncanny sensation of being watched. Restorers who worked on them described odd occurrences, such as brushes inexplicably slipping from their hands or a weight in the air that could not be explained. Though such experiences remain in the realm of personal testimony, they add to the sense that Goya's late works are not merely paintings, but portals into something beyond ordinary understanding. Experts continue to study the black paintings, exploring their relationship to the rooms they once inhabited, the ambience of the Quinta del Sordo, and the state of mind of Goya himself when he created them. Yet even the most rigorous analysis cannot strip them of their ghostly aura. Each brushstroke seems to carry a hidden message, a whisper from a realm just beyond human comprehension. With Ghostly Vision returning to the light, the mystery only intensifies, for the painting fits seamlessly into the unsettling gallery of images, yet also brings new questions about Goya's intent. The rediscovery of Ghostly Vision after 90 years is more than a triumph of art history. It is a reminder of the enduring power of mystery. Goya's black paintings remain masterpieces of fear and fascination, their meanings elusive, their presence almost otherworldly. Whether one believes in the legends of spirits that linger within them or not, the truth remains that few artworks in human history carry such a heavy weight of intrigue. The return of this lost painting ensures that the mystery of Francisco de Goya will continue to haunt and inspire for generations to come. The mystery of the Black Stick Men. One of the most peculiar reports surrounding paranormal activity located in forests all across North America appears to be that of a paranormal phenomenon known as the Black Stick Men. By all regards, the Black Stick Men are an extremely recent phenomenon, with the first known report having been written roughly a little over a year ago during 2018, and no hint of such creatures having existed at any point in time prior to these first reports. The first well-documented report of the Black Stick Men came from researcher Mark Wolfgang Miller, who claimed that he had encountered the strange creature during an expedition throughout the small town of Beaufort, Wyoming. There, he claimed that he and his team came within 6 feet of a black stick man that towered above them in the forest and would have been completely invisible had it not turned to face them. According to eyewitness reports, the Black Stick Men are a paranormal or supernatural creature that appears to stand at 7 feet to 12 feet tall, is completely void of color or light, and is typically described similar to that of a silhouette or shadow. These entities are so thin that the creature is widely claimed to be only 2-dimensional in shape, and, when turned sideways, is impossible to see by any eyewitness account. It is this 2-dimensionality that allows the Black Stick Men to sneak up on the eyewitnesses in their stories and suddenly appear in front of them after turning to face them. Black Stick Men are not similar to reports of shadow people in mostly 3 separate regards. Unlike claims of shadow people, the Black Stick Men are widely regarded as being 2-dimensional, whereas shadow people have 3-dimensional shapes. Additionally, those of whom that have claimed to have witnessed the Black Stick Men will often say that they feel a sudden oppressive negative energy fill the air that causes a strange feeling of aggression and agitation in those surrounding or looking at the entity. Several theories of the creature so far believe the entity to be a being that's able to travel through different dimensions, only recently having accessed our 3-dimensional plane. The strange case of Barry and Honey Sherman. The mysterious and tragic case of Canadian billionaires Barry and Honey Sherman remains one of the most perplexing and high-profile homicide cases in recent history. Nearly 5 years after their deaths, their son, Jonathan Sherman, has increased the reward for information leading to an arrest to a staggering $35 million. The Shermans, a philanthropic couple known for their vast contributions to hospitals, universities, and Jewish organizations, were found strangled in their Toronto home on December 15, 2017. Despite years of investigation and public appeals, no suspect has been named, leaving their family desperate for answers and justice. Barry Sherman was the founder and chairman of Apotex, a pharmaceutical company that made him one of the richest men in Canada. With a fortune estimated to be between $5 billion and $10 billion, his influence extended beyond business, as he and his wife were dedicated to charitable work. Their deaths sent shockwaves throughout Canada, not only because of their wealth and status, but also due to the sheer brutality of the crime. The couple was found side by side with their bodies posed near their indoor pool. Police later confirmed it was a double homicide, ruling out any possibility that one of them had taken the other's life. Since the case was declared a murder investigation, police efforts have been extensive. Toronto authorities have interviewed over 250 witnesses, obtained 41 warrants, and received more than 1,200 tips from the public. However, despite these efforts, the case remains unsolved. Last December, police released surveillance footage of an unidentified person walking near the Shermans' home the day before they were slain. Investigators believe this individual is a key suspect, but the person has not yet been identified. While the police have reiterated their commitment to solving the case, the lack of significant breakthroughs has led the Sherman family to take matters into their own hands. From the beginning, the Shermans' children have been vocal in their dissatisfaction with the police investigation. Frustrated by what they saw as a lack of urgency and direction, they hired a private investigator to conduct a separate inquiry into the case. This independent investigation ran parallel to the police efforts, further emphasizing the family's determination to find justice for their parents. Now, with Jonathan Sherman adding an additional $18 million to the reward, the family hopes that someone with crucial information will come forward. Jonathan Sherman has expressed deep grief over his parents' case, stating that the pain of losing them has been unbearable. He noted that their absence is felt every day, particularly when he thinks about how his children will never have the opportunity to know their grandparents. In his statement, he also acknowledged that his parents had worked hard their entire lives, and they deserved to enjoy their later years surrounded by family, rather than having their lives cut short in such a brutal manner. The mystery surrounding the Shermans case has led to numerous theories, ranging from professional assassination to business-related retaliation. Barry Sherman was known for his aggressive business tactics, often engaging in legal battles within the pharmaceutical industry. Some believe that his success may have earned him powerful enemies, though no evidence has surfaced to support this theory definitively. Others speculate that the couple's vast fortune may have played a role, suggesting a financial motive behind what happened. Despite these theories, the case remains without resolution, and the Sherman family continues to push for answers. The massive reward now offered presents a significant incentive for anyone with knowledge of the crime to come forward. While some high-profile cases have gone unsolved for decades, history has shown that large financial incentives can sometimes lead to key breakthroughs. The Sherman family is holding on to hope that the increased reward will finally bring them the answers they have been seeking for years. The disappearance of Marion Barter remains one of Australia's most baffling missing person cases. Marion was a well-respected teacher, a devoted mother, and an adventurous spirit who seemed to be embarking on the trip of a lifetime when she vanished without a trace in 1997. Despite numerous investigations, inquiries, and a dedicated army of amateur sleuths, the mystery of what happened to her remains unsolved. Marion was last seen on June 22, 1997, when she was dropped off at a bus stop in Southport, Queensland, to travel to the airport. She had told her family she was planning a long-term vacation to England. For her daughter, Sally Layden, it was an emotional but exciting farewell, as Marion was fulfilling her lifelong dream of traveling abroad. At the time, there was no indication that this trip would be the last time anyone in her family would see or hear from her. A month later, on August 1, 1997, Marion called her daughter from a phone booth in Tunbridge Wells, England. She spoke enthusiastically about her experiences and mentioned postponing her trip on the Orient Express because she was enjoying herself so much. However, their conversation abruptly ended when Marion ran out of coins. That would be the last time Sally ever heard from her mother. What made the case even more perplexing was the discovery that Marion's passport had arrived back in Brisbane the very next day. Official records showed that she had changed her name before leaving Australia, taking on the identity of Fernand Nicolas Remakel. This name was later linked to a man named Remakel Blum, a Belgian national known to have had multiple affairs and a history of frequently changing his name. Blum had been married for 40 years to his wife, Diane de Hedevari, yet he was also active in the world of Lonely Hearts ads, describing himself as single and looking for love. During the inquest into Marion's disappearance, Blum admitted to meeting her through a dating advertisement, but denied any involvement in her disappearance. His repeated name changes and evasiveness raised suspicions, but there was no definitive evidence linking him to her fate. He insisted that he had not harmed her or played any role in her disappearance, despite acknowledging that he had known her personally. In August 2020, the New South Wales State Coroner announced an investigation into Marion's disappearance and presumed death. This decision reignited public interest in the case, prompting podcasts, social media pages, and online sleuths to dig deeper into what really happened. The case became a subject of national discussion in Australia, though it remains largely unknown in the United Kingdom, where she was last seen. Authorities struggled to piece together the puzzle of Marion's last known movements. While her passport's return to Australia suggested she had come back, there were no further records of her whereabouts. Her bank accounts showed suspicious withdrawals, but no confirmed sightings of her ever surfaced. This led investigators to consider the possibility that she had met with foul play upon her return. For years, Marion's family felt abandoned by law enforcement, as her disappearance was not even listed on the National Missing Persons Register for over 2 decades. It wasn't until 2019, when the New South Wales Missing Persons Unit was disbanded and replaced with a new unit, that her case was finally reviewed. The Australian Federal Police reopened the investigation, placing her on the register and acknowledging the deep failures in her case's handling. The renewed investigation prompted a major breakthrough in June 2021, when New South Wales Police and the local government announced a $250,000 reward for information leading to the discovery of what happened to Marion. The reward was later increased to $500,000 in April 2022, reflecting the growing pressure to solve this decades-old mystery. Despite these efforts, the case remains unsolved. Sally Layden has continued to push for answers, refusing to let her mother's disappearance be forgotten. She has dedicated years to raising awareness, appearing in interviews, and working alongside investigators in the hope of uncovering the truth. Marion Barter's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how easily someone can disappear, even in the modern world. The lack of clear evidence, combined with the strange circumstances surrounding her case, has left more questions than answers. Theories about her fate range from voluntary disappearance to potential foul play, but without definitive proof, the truth remains elusive. The case of Marion Barter continues to captivate the public, with podcasts and online communities determined to find out what really happened. Whether through new witnesses coming forward, advancements in forensic investigations, or persistent efforts by her family and supporters, the hope remains that one day, the mystery of Marion Barter will finally be solved. The unknown identity of the Giza Bandit. The Giza Bandit remains one of the most infamous and mysterious bank robbers in modern history. Between 2009 and 2011, this elusive criminal robbed 16 banks across San Diego County, leaving authorities baffled and the public captivated. His signature appearance was that of an elderly man, seemingly in his 60s or 70s, complete with a frail gait and wrinkled skin. However, many believe this was nothing more than an elaborate disguise, a well-crafted latex mask meant to mislead investigators and witnesses. The true identity of the Giza Bandit remains unknown, and his ability to vanish without a trace has only deepened the mystery surrounding his crimes. The crime spree began on August 28, 2009, when the Giza Bandit robbed a US bank in Santee, California. Surveillance footage showed an elderly man approaching the teller, calmly presenting a demand note and brandishing a small handgun. His demeanor was composed, almost rehearsed, leading many to speculate that he was not an amateur but an experienced criminal. After securing the money, he walked out of the bank at a normal pace, disappearing into the streets without immediate pursuit. Over the next 2 years, he struck 15 more times, each robbery nearly identical in execution. Special Agent James Stinnett of the FBI in San Diego has dedicated years to tracking the Giza Bandit, but no definitive leads have surfaced. The most significant piece of evidence left behind was a day planner that the bandit dropped at the scene of his first robbery. Investigators have been forensically analyzing the item for fingerprints or DNA, yet it has not yielded any conclusive results. The FBI remains hopeful that this piece of evidence may one day provide the breakthrough they need to identify the mysterious robber. One of the prevailing theories is that the Giza Bandit may have changed his disguise entirely. His effectiveness in avoiding capture suggests a high level of criminal sophistication. The FBI has been analyzing the body movements of recent bank robbers to see if they match the distinct mannerisms of the Giza Bandit. While the mask may have been a clever deception, his physical habits and gait might give him away if he is still active. Some investigators believe he may still be committing crimes, but under a completely different persona, making it much harder to track him down. Despite the intensity of the investigation, there is also the possibility that the Giza Bandit simply stopped robbing banks. However, history suggests that most bank robbers continue their criminal activities until they are caught. The sudden halt in his robberies in 2011 has led some to theorize that he may have been arrested under a different crime, left the country, or even passed away. Without new evidence, the case remains open-ended, leaving room for speculation. The case of the Giza Bandit is one that continues to intrigue law enforcement and true crime enthusiasts alike. His ability to evade capture, the likelihood of a well-crafted disguise, and his possible re-emergence under a new identity make him one of the most mysterious criminals in recent history. Whether he will ever be unmasked remains to be seen, but for now, the mystery endures. The mystery of Ryan Stuker. The disappearance of Ryan Stuker remains one of Canada's most haunting unsolved mysteries. In 2018, the 20-year-old lift operator from Alberta vanished without a trace after leaving a party in Sun Peaks, British Columbia. His absence triggered an immediate and widespread search, with volunteers from across British Columbia and Alberta coming together in hopes of finding any trace of him. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, search and rescue teams, and his loved ones, no definitive clues have emerged to explain what happened to him that night. Sun Peaks, a popular ski resort town, was plastered with billboards bearing Ryan's face, serving as a constant reminder of his unresolved fate. These billboards stood as silent witnesses to the unanswered questions surrounding his disappearance. The eerie reminder was unavoidable for those traveling through the area, emphasizing just how deeply the mystery of Ryan's vanishing has affected the community. The case has remained open and active, with both professional and amateur investigators continuing their efforts to find answers. On the night of February 17, 2018, Ryan attended a house party with friends. By 2 a.m, he decided to leave, presumably heading home. However, he never arrived, and no one has seen or heard from him since. His disappearance was both baffling and deeply unsettling. There were no signs of struggle, no known conflicts, and no clear explanation for how he simply vanished into the cold winter night. The terrain around Sun Peaks was thoroughly searched, but no definitive evidence has been found. The lack of clues has led to numerous theories, but none have provided closure to his grieving family and friends. In the days following his disappearance, hundreds of volunteers braved the harsh winter conditions to search the surrounding mountains and heavily wooded areas. Ryan's parents, Heather and Scott Stuker, quickly traveled to Sun Peaks to lead the search efforts. Their determination to find their son was unwavering, and they held on to the hope that each new day would bring fresh leads. Despite the exhaustive searches conducted by both trained professionals and dedicated volunteers, Ryan's whereabouts remained a mystery. One of the most significant efforts involved the use of a search dog, led by search and rescue team member Mike Ritzie. He believed that expanding the search perimeter beyond the immediate Sun Peaks area could yield new insights. While the mountains and ski resort itself had been meticulously combed through, there was always the possibility that a clue had been overlooked in the vast wilderness surrounding the town. However, even with these expanded efforts, no trace of Ryan has been discovered. The mystery of Ryan Stuker's disappearance has left an indelible mark on the Sun Peaks community. The uncertainty surrounding his fate has caused many to exercise increased caution, knowing that someone can seemingly vanish without warning. The case serves as a reminder of how fragile life can be, and how even in tight-knit communities, people can disappear without a trace. His family and the townspeople continue to hope that one day, new information will come to light. For Ryan's family, the search has never truly ended. His mother, Heather, has been particularly vocal in keeping his story alive, advocating for awareness about missing persons and continuing to urge anyone with information to come forward. She has dedicated herself to ensuring that Ryan's name is not forgotten and that the unanswered questions surrounding his disappearance are not ignored. The heartbreak of not knowing what happened to their son is something they have been forced to endure every single day. As the years pass, the case remains open and the search for Ryan continues. His disappearance is a chilling mystery that has left a community in mourning and a family searching for closure. Those who knew him remember a young man full of life, laughter, and adventure. Until the day comes when answers are finally uncovered, the people of Sun Peaks and beyond will continue to hold on to the hope that one day Ryan Stuker will be found. The unsolved mystery of Matthew and Philip Reagan. The case of Matthew and Philip Reagan remains one of the most perplexing and tragic unsolved mysteries in recent years. The two brothers, originally from Ohio, embarked on a road trip across the country in March 2020 with the ultimate goal of relocating Philip to California for a new job. Their journey, filled with adventure and sightseeing, ended abruptly in a desolate area of Sawmill, Arizona, on the Navajo Nation reservation. Their bodies were discovered with multiple pistol wounds on March 21, 2020, leaving investigators and their grieving family searching for answers. Philip Reagan, aged 29, had just accepted a job at the Montecito Sequoia Lodge in the Sequoia National Forest of Central California. He was anxious about the move, expressing to his family that he felt jobless and homeless and had no choice but to take the opportunity. His older brother, Matthew Reagan, aged 39, a married father of 5, decided to accompany him on the journey. Matthew was an engineer who designed heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, a career that frequently took him across the country for work. The two brothers set off west in an SUV, maintaining frequent contact with their family as they traveled. Their trip seemed to be going as planned. Along the way, they stopped at well-known landmarks, including the iconic You Drop In Cafe on Route 66 in Shamrock, Texas. They even shared a photo in front of the Conoco gas station, a recognizable landmark featured in the animated film Cars. However, as they crossed from Texas into New Mexico, their communication with family became less frequent due to limited cell service. The last known contact was a Skype call between Matthew and his wife Faye from Shamrock, Texas. This was the final time she saw her husband and brother-in-law alive. On March 21st, the brothers were on their way to Canyon de Chelly, a national monument known for its ancient ruins and Native American rock carvings. At some point, they relied on GPS navigation, which led them down an unpaved road near Sawmill, Arizona. Investigators later determined that the GPS had misdirected them into a remote area covered in snow and mud. Their Ford SUV became stuck about half a mile from where their bodies were later found. Unable to move the vehicle, they attempted to walk back toward a gas station, but they never made it. At some point during their trek, both men were fired at multiple times. A passing driver noticed the brothers partially on the road and had to search for cell phone service before being able to call the authorities. The first law enforcement officers to arrive at the scene were members of the Navajo Tribal Police, followed by the Apache County Sheriff's deputies. Given that the crime occurred on the Navajo Nation reservation but involved non-Native American victims, the case was handed over to the FBI for further investigation. Determining jurisdiction in crimes on tribal land is complex, often requiring authorities to consider the identity of both the victim and the perpetrator before assigning investigative responsibility. The FBI has actively sought information from the public regarding the case, yet no suspect has been identified. Authorities have not revealed any known motives, nor have they suggested any possible links between the Reagan brothers and individuals who may have wanted to harm them. The circumstances surrounding their passings raise troubling questions. The fact that they were stranded in an unfamiliar area makes it less likely they had any prior connection to the individual. Despite the ongoing investigation, the case of Matthew and Philip Reagan remains unsolved. The FBI has asked for anyone with information to come forward, offering hope that a crucial piece of evidence might finally surface. The case remains a haunting reminder of how quickly a journey filled with hope and new beginnings can turn into a tragic and unexplained loss. The mystery of Amber Alyssa Tuccaro. Amber Alyssa Tuccaro's case remains one of the most haunting unresolved cases in Canada. Tuccaro, a 20-year-old Indigenous woman from Fort McMurray, Alberta, went missing in August 2010 after accepting a ride from an unknown man near Edmonton. Despite significant evidence, including an audio recording of her last known conversation, her killer has never been identified. Her case has become emblematic of the high number of missing Indigenous women in Canada and the failures in investigating their disappearances. On August 17, 2010, Tuccaro arrived in Edmonton with her infant son and a female friend for what was supposed to be a short vacation. The trio booked a hotel in Nisku, a small town just south of Edmonton, intending to enjoy a brief getaway. The next day, around 8 in the evening, Tuccaro left the hotel and decided to hitchhike into Edmonton. She was last seen getting into a vehicle with an unidentified man. During the car ride, Tuccaro received a phone call, and what followed would later become a critical piece of evidence in her case. In the recorded conversation, Tuccaro can be heard confronting the driver, questioning where they were going. The man assured her they were heading east toward Edmonton, but investigators later determined that he had actually driven south into rural Leduc County. Tuccaro's tone in the recording suggests she was becoming increasingly suspicious and uneasy. Her repeated questioning of the driver, combined with his vague and misleading responses, indicate that she realized something was wrong. 2 years later, on September 1, 2012, horseback riders discovered Tuccaro's remains in a field in Leduc County. Dental records confirmed her identity, turning her disappearance into a homicide investigation. The discovery raised more questions than answers, particularly regarding why it had taken so long for significant action to be taken in her case. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police's handling of the investigation came under severe scrutiny. On September 4, 2010, just weeks after Tukaro's disappearance, police issued a statement saying they did not believe she was in any danger. This assumption, which lacked substantial evidence, deeply frustrated her family, who felt the authorities were not taking the case seriously. They believed that stereotypes about Indigenous women had influenced the investigation, leading to delays and negligence. The lack of urgency in the early stages of the case may have cost investigators crucial time in finding Tukaro. Even after Tukaro's remains were found, her family was left with little information about the progress of the investigation. Her brother, Paul Tukaro, later revealed that the police had waited an entire year before releasing the audio recording of the unidentified man's voice to the public. This delay angered the family and raised concerns about the priorities and competence of law enforcement. In 2014, Tukaro's family filed a complaint with the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The commission conducted an independent review of the case and released a 120-page report in August 2018. The findings were damning. The report concluded that the investigation was deeply flawed and that multiple officers had either lacked proper training or failed to follow established procedures. It found that crucial steps had been overlooked, and investigators had not adhered to the guidelines necessary for handling such cases. The Tukaro case is a painful reminder of the widespread issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada. The country has long struggled with failures in addressing cases against Indigenous women who are disproportionately affected by disappearances. Families often feel ignored by law enforcement, and investigations are frequently mishandled or not given the attention they deserve. The lack of accountability and transparency in Tukaro's case exemplifies these ongoing issues. Despite the release of the suspect's voice recording, no arrests have been made, and the identity of the man who was last with Tukaro remains unknown. Investigators continue to urge the public to come forward if they recognize the voice, but more than a decade later, the case remains unsolved. Tukaro's family has never stopped seeking justice. They continue to fight for answers and push for law enforcement agencies to take Indigenous women's cases more seriously. Their persistence has helped keep her case in the public eye, but without significant leads, it remains an open investigation. The pain of not knowing who took her life and why weighs heavily on her loved ones. Her case is part of a larger, deeply troubling pattern of violence against Indigenous women in Canada. The National Inquiry into Missing Indigenous Women, which concluded in 2019, labelled the issue a national crisis and called for changes in law enforcement and government policies. However, progress has been slow, and many families continue to struggle for answers. The case of Amber Tukaro is not just an individual tragedy. It is a symbol of the ongoing crisis faced by Indigenous women in Canada. The failures in her case highlight the urgent need for reform in how authorities handle these disappearances. Viewers who tuned in to watch the broadcast of the Queen's funeral had an unexpected surprise when a mysterious voice unexpectedly accompanied the coverage. The unsettling narration caught many off guard, adding a mysterious and unsettling element to the solemn event. During the live broadcast of the procession escorting the deceased monarch's coffin out of London, a new transmission came onto the broadcast, resulting in a faint whispered voice that interrupted the coverage. The unexpected disruption added a mysterious element to the unfolding event, capturing the attention of viewers. In a brief pause, the male commentator, who had been closely monitoring the events on the live broadcast, suddenly lost his audio connection, and his voice was temporarily substituted by the mysterious female commentator. While it's hard to make out, she appeared to say, "The death is irreversible. The fact that she's trapped."
The death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
As you can see,
the death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
as you can see,
the death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
as you can see.
Some online users suggested that there was a frequency problem, and monarch insiders were trying to do something that the public wasn't meant to hear. Others carried on and questioned why someone was talking about the Queen being trapped, which caused a variety of strange theories to be put forward in order to explain what the female voice was talking about. Those who heard the mysterious woman's voice even said that the male presenter purposefully talked over her in order to block out what she was saying. The passing of a monarch is a significant event that often carries deep implications for a nation's political stability, cultural identity, and societal cohesion. Throughout history, the passings of kings and queens have been shrouded in secrecy and ritual, with monarch insiders playing a crucial role in managing the transition of power and informing the public in a manner that maintains stability and continuity. One of the primary reasons for keeping a monarch's passing a secret before informing the public is to ensure a smooth transition of power and prevent any potential power vacuum or destabilizing effects on the nation. In monarchical systems, the passing of a monarch often triggers a carefully orchestrated succession process, with designated heirs or successors poised to assume the throne. Monarch insiders, such as royal advisors, courtiers, and high-ranking officials, are entrusted with the task of managing this transition discreetly, allowing the new monarch to assume their duties without undue disruption or uncertainty. Maintaining secrecy surrounding a monarch's passing also serves to preserve the dignity and honor of the royal family, shielding them from unwanted public scrutiny or sensationalism during a period of mourning. By controlling the flow of information and adhering to established protocols and traditions, monarch insiders can ensure that the transition of power proceeds with the solemnity and decorum befitting the occasion, minimizing the risk of controversy or discord within the royal household and among the public. Additionally, keeping a monarch's passing a secret for a brief period allows for the necessary logistical arrangements to be made for the official announcement and funeral proceedings. This may include notifying key stakeholders, coordinating funeral arrangements, and preparing the necessary ceremonial rituals and protocols. Monarch insiders play a pivotal role in overseeing these preparations behind the scenes, working closely with relevant authorities and stakeholders to ensure that everything is in place for a dignified and seamless transition of power. Furthermore, maintaining confidentiality surrounding a monarch's passing can help mitigate any potential political or diplomatic repercussions that may arise from the news. In some cases, the passing of a monarch may have significant implications for the nation's internal politics or its relations with other countries. By exercising discretion and caution in the dissemination of information, monarch insiders can manage these sensitivities and navigate any potential challenges or sensitivities that may arise in the aftermath of the monarch's passing. The process of keeping this a secret typically involves a tightly controlled circle of individuals who are privy to the information. This inner circle may include close family members, trusted advisors, senior government officials, and key figures within the royal household. These individuals are bound by strict codes of confidentiality and loyalty, ensuring that sensitive information remains safeguarded until the appropriate time for its disclosure. Once the necessary arrangements have been made and the new monarch is ready to assume their duties, the official announcement of the monarch's passing is typically made to the public through established channels and protocols. This may involve issuing a formal proclamation or declaration, followed by public ceremonies and rituals to mark the transition of power and mourn the loss of the deceased monarch. The mystery of the princes in the Tower is one of the most enduring and intriguing mysteries in English history. Upon his unexpected passing on the 9th of April in 1483, due to an illness that spanned approximately 3 weeks, Edward IV of England left behind a significant political vacuum. During this period, his son, the newly crowned King Edward V, was residing at Ludlow Castle, while Richard, the Duke of Gloucester and Edward's brother, was stationed at Middleham Castle in Yorkshire. News of Edward IV's demise eventually reached Gloucester around the 15th of April, with potential prior knowledge of the king's ailing health. It is documented that upon hearing the news, Gloucester made a public display of his allegiance to the new monarch by visiting York Minster to affirm his loyalty. The historical accounts, such as the Croyland Chronicle, suggest that Edward IV had appointed Gloucester as the Lord Protector before his death. Despite Edward's request, the Privy Council was not obligated to adhere to the deceased king's wishes, as exemplified by the precedent set during Henry V's reign. This situation underscores the complexity of succession and power dynamics during that pivotal historical moment. Edward V and Gloucester embarked on their journeys towards London, approaching from the west and north regions respectively, finally converging at Stony Stratford on the 29th of April. The subsequent day, Gloucester proceeded to apprehend Edward's entourage, which notably included the young boy's uncle, Anthony Woodville, 2nd Earl Rivers, along with their half-brother, Sir Richard Grey. This captive group was later transported to Pontefract Castle, situated in Yorkshire, where a grim fate awaited them on the 25th of June in the form of decapitation. Following this event, Gloucester took custody of the young prince, Edward V, which prompted a swift reaction from Elizabeth Woodville. In response, she sought refuge at Westminster Abbey with her son Richard, the Duke of York, and her daughters, in a bid to safeguard them from a similar fate. Edward V and Gloucester arrived in London together. Plans continued for Edward's official coronation, but the date was postponed from the 4th of May to the 25th of June. On the 19th of May, 1483, Edward was lodged in the Tower of London, then the traditional residence of monarchs prior to the coronation. On the 16th of June, he was joined by his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, who was previously in sanctuary. At this point, the date of Edward's coronation was indefinitely postponed by their uncle Gloucester. On Sunday, the 22nd of June, a sermon was preached by Dr. Ralph Shah, brother of the Lord Mayor of London, at St. Paul's Cross, claiming Gloucester to be the only legitimate heir of the House of York. On the 25th of June, a group of lords, knights and gentlemen petitioned Richard to take the throne. Both princes were subsequently declared illegitimate by Parliament. This was confirmed in 1484 by an Act of Parliament known as Titulus Regius. The Act stated that Edward IV and Elizabeth Woodville's marriage was invalid because of Edward's pre-contract of marriage with Lady Eleanor Butler. Gloucester was crowned King Richard III of England on the 6th of July. The declaration of the boy's illegitimacy has been described by Rosemary Horrocks as an ex post facto justification for Richard's accession. Dominic Mancini, an Italian friar who visited England in the 1480s and who was in London in the spring and summer of 1484, recorded that after Richard III seized the throne, Edward and his younger brother Richard were taken into the inner apartments of the Tower and then were seen less and less until they disappeared altogether. Mancini records that, during this period, Edward was regularly visited by a doctor who reported that Edward sought remission of his sins by daily confession and penance because he believed that the end was facing him. The Latin reference to Argentinus Medicus was originally translated as a Strasbourg doctor. However, Rhodes suggests it may actually refer to Dr. Argentine, whom Rhodes identifies as John Argentine, an English physician who later served as Provost of King's College, Cambridge, and as doctor to Arthur, Prince of Wales, eldest son of King Henry VII of England. Following Richard's reunion with his brother, there have been accounts suggesting that the two princes were observed engaging in playful activities within the Tower premises. However, records do not document any further sightings of them beyond the summer of 1483. An unsuccessful rescue mission was undertaken towards the end of July in an effort to locate them. The destiny of the two princes continues to linger as an unsolved mystery, shrouded in mystery and speculation. Various theories and conjectures have been put forth over the years, yet no definitive answers have emerged to resolve their ultimate fate. Many scholars in the field of history speculate about the fate of the princes, with a prevailing belief that they met a tragic end. There is a view suggesting that the possible occurrence of their demise took place in the latter part of the summer of 1483. Maurice Keane puts forward the argument that the uprising against Richard III in 1483 was initially aimed at liberating Edward V and his sibling from the confines of the Tower of London before it was too late. However, as the Duke of Buckingham got involved, the focus of the rebellion shifted towards endorsing Henry Tudor, as Buckingham likely had knowledge of the prince's demise within the Tower's walls. Alison Weir posits the 3rd of September 1483 as a probable date for the event. Nonetheless, Weir's findings have faced criticism for being heavily reliant on her own conjecture rather than on the ambiguous evidence she has presented in a misleading manner. The mysteries surrounding the disappearance of the two princes at the hands of a possible murder remain a subject of intricate scholarly debate, delving deep into the complexities of political dynamics and power struggles of that era. In his analysis of historical records, Clements Markham, a prominent historian, suggests that there is a possibility that the princes, believed to be Edward V and Richard, Duke of York, could have still been alive as late as July 1484. Markham draws attention to a set of regulations issued by Richard III household that specified the requirement for the children to have breakfast together. However, diverging from Markham's view, James Gairdner argues that the identity of the term "the children" is ambiguous and might not necessarily refer to the princes in question. Gairdner posits that the phrase could have been alluding to a different group of individuals. Specifically, he proposes that the children mentioned in the regulations could be Edward, Earl of Warwick, who was the son of the Duke of Clarence, along with Edward IV's two youngest daughters, Catherine and Bridget. These individuals were under the care of Richard III at Sheriff Hutton during that period. While the fate of the princes remains shrouded in mystery, the absence of conclusive evidence hinders any definitive conclusion, as acknowledged by the lack of credible and impartial sources detailing the events surrounding their disappearance. Despite the ambiguity surrounding their fate, speculations concerning their demise quickly proliferated following their vanishing act. Notably, Dominic Mancini's sole contemporary narrative depicting the prince's time in the Tower stood as a rare account until its unearthing in 1934 at the Municipal Library in Lille. Subsequent chronicles penned post the rise of Henry Tudor often carry accusations of bias or Tudor-influenced narratives, casting doubt on their reliability. The narrative's scarcity adds layers of complexity to the long-standing mystery surrounding the prince's untimely disappearance, inviting a deeper exploration of the intricacies and implications surrounding their mysterious case. In the shadowy depths of Cold War espionage and classified government experiments, there exists a peculiar chapter in the history of US intelligence, a chapter where the limits of consciousness, perception, and ancient religious artifacts intertwined. Among the most extraordinary revelations to emerge from this period is the claim that the Central Intelligence Agency, through its once classified remote viewing program known as Project Sunstreak, may have uncovered the location of one of history's most mysterious and sacred relics, the Ark of the Covenant. Dated 1988, a declassified document from Project Sunstreak outlines the use of a psychic spy, known as a remote viewer, tasked with locating the Ark of the Covenant. Remote viewing, a technique once mocked and dismissed as pseudoscience, was quietly funded and studied by US intelligence for years, used in attempts to perceive locations, objects, or events inaccessible by conventional means. This method was born from the belief, supported by emerging theories in quantum physics, that consciousness is not bound by space or time. Rooted in the idea of non-local perception and the interconnectedness of all matter and energy, remote viewing posits that the human mind can traverse space, reaching targets thousands of miles away, by simply tuning into them mentally. According to the document, the remote viewer's task was straightforward but staggering in implication. Describe and locate the Ark of the Covenant. The viewer's report painted a vivid and almost cinematic picture of a mysterious container fashioned of wood and overlaid with gold and silver. The form of the object was likened to a coffin, detailed with ornate seraphim, six-winged angelic beings described in ancient religious texts. The description matches historical and biblical accounts of the Ark, a sacred object said to have been built by Moses under divine instruction, used to carry the Ten Commandments and, allegedly, capable of supernatural feats ranging from stopping rivers to destroying armies. The viewer described not just the object, but its surroundings with an impressive degree of specificity. The Ark, the report stated, was located underground, hidden in a space that was dark and damp beneath the surface of a place somewhere in the Middle East. Visual cues observed during the session included mosque domes, Arabic-speaking individuals dressed in white, and buildings with a distinctly Middle Eastern architectural style. One particularly clear figure was described as a man with black hair, dark eyes, and a prominent moustache, suggesting a very specific and real-world context for what might otherwise be dismissed as pure imagination. The container's environment was described with atmospheric detail, underground and wet, perhaps hinting at a cave or buried chamber long forgotten. Yet it was not only the physical description that stirred intrigue. but the spiritual and metaphysical impressions the remote viewer sensed. The Ark's purpose, according to the viewer, was not simply historical or ceremonial. It was imbued with a deep significance, associated with resurrection, unity, memory, and homage. It represented a kind of spiritual technology, a transmitter of information, and a vessel of historical knowledge far beyond modern understanding. What set this particular session apart from standard archaeological speculation was the claim that the Ark was protected, not by men, but by non-human entities. These beings, according to the viewer, were not merely symbolic. They were real and active in guarding the object, ensuring it would not be disturbed until a specific time predetermined by forces unknown. Only those authorized to do so, the report stated, could access the Ark. Attempts to force it open would result in immediate and fatal consequences for the violator, as protectors wielding a mysterious form of energy or power would intervene. Such a claim mirrored many religious traditions and myths surrounding the Ark, which long warned that improper handling could bring instant death. One of the most interesting aspects of the account lies in its tone, neither exaggerated nor overtly mystical. The viewer relayed information in straightforward language, adhering to the controlled procedures of military-grade remote viewing. There was no flamboyant storytelling or emotional embellishment. The object, its composition, the layered design, and the details of its surroundings were described with clinical clarity. The figure being remote viewed reported an inner container within the main container, an element that sparked theories about whether the Ark held not just the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, but other unknown artifacts or relics. The CIA's interest in the Ark of the Covenant may strike some as outlandish, but during the height of Cold War-era psychic experimentation, such missions were not uncommon. From locating enemy missile bases to investigating potential alien artifacts, the use of psychic spies was an unconventional but surprisingly well-documented aspect of American intelligence operations. These programs were backed by research institutions such as SRI International and were at times supported by physicists and military officers who believed in the potential of the human mind to tap into a wider field of perception. While the 1988 document does not state a precise geographical coordinate for the Ark's location, many who have analyzed the report have speculated that the location described could be somewhere within or near Jerusalem, possibly beneath the Temple Mount or in a buried chamber near the Dead Sea. Other interpretations point to Petra, in Jordan, or even the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum, Ethiopia, a location already steeped in legends of housing the Ark. Yet, if the CIA's remote viewing session is to be taken at face value, the most accurate clue may lie not in traditional sites, but in a hidden location unmarked by conventional history, where mosque domes are visible, Arabic is spoken, and the desert conceals a powerful mystery. Skeptics have long debated the validity of remote viewing as a technique, citing inconsistent results and lack of empirical repeatability. However, supporters argue that the technique, when conducted under controlled conditions by trained individuals, has yielded information that could not have been otherwise known. The description of the Ark, its dual containers, the presence of seraphim, and the dire consequences for tampering all align with numerous religious accounts, particularly those in the Hebrew Bible and later mystical texts, which describe the Ark as a dangerous and holy vessel whose power should not be trifled with. Moreover, the inclusion of spiritual and informational components, suggesting that the Ark stores not just physical items, but metaphysical or even encoded knowledge, places the object in a category that bridges the sacred and the scientific. Some theorists have even proposed that the Ark may represent ancient technology capable of emitting energy or acting as a communication device. The idea that it could bring people together and be a conduit of divine information aligns with theories that posit the Ark was far more than a container. It was a symbol of covenant and a literal tool of interaction between humanity and the divine. The notion that such an object is protected by non-human intelligences further adds to the mystique. Were these entities described by the remote viewer literal guardians in some spiritual dimension, or could they be interpreted as advanced beings, possibly extraterrestrial, who placed the Ark and have been monitoring it ever since? The description of a power that can destroy those who try to open it improperly evokes images found in stories like those of the ancient Hebrew priest who died after touching the Ark, or the cinematic depiction in Raiders of the Lost Ark, a mythologized but strangely resonant vision. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the entire viewing was the idea that the Ark cannot be opened until the time is deemed correct. This suggests a programmed moment, a prophetic convergence of circumstances when the Ark's true purpose will be revealed. The idea echoes eschatological themes found in Abrahamic religions, where the return of sacred objects accompanies a transformation of humanity or the arrival of a messianic age. Whether one interprets such ideas as religious prophecy or encoded myth, the implication is clear. The Ark is not lost. It is hidden, protected, and waiting. The CIA's interest in the Ark and its use of remote viewing may forever remain on the fringe of mainstream historical inquiry, but for those willing to explore the boundaries of perception and consciousness, the 1988 Project Sunstreak document offers more than just a glimpse of a forgotten artifact. It offers a narrative that challenges our understanding of history, spirituality, and the power of the human mind. For now, the Ark of the Covenant remains hidden, buried beneath sand, stone, or perhaps guarded by entities beyond our comprehension. But in a dimly lit room over 3 decades ago, one remote viewer may have brushed against its presence, not with their hands but with their mind, and revealed to the world that history's greatest treasure was never really gone. It was always just waiting to be seen. The Ark of the Covenant remains one of the most enduring and mysterious relics in the history of human civilization. Said to have been constructed under divine instruction during the Israelites' journey across the Sinai Desert, the Ark is more than just a sacred object. It is a symbol of divine power, judgment, and protection. According to biblical tradition, as the Israelites fled Egypt and wandered through the desert, Moses relayed God's direct command to construct a vessel that would house the tablets inscribed with the 10 Commandments. These tablets were not ordinary stone, but believed to be imbued with supernatural power, some even suggesting they were forged with gold from the Garden of Eden itself, representing the cosmic moral balance between good and evil. The physical specifications of the Ark were detailed with extraordinary precision. God instructed the Israelites to build it from acacia wood, measuring approximately 3.75 feet in length and 2.25 feet in width, and then to overlay it entirely in gold, both inside and out. A cherub was to be placed atop the lid, its wings stretching upward to cast a sacred shadow over what became known as the mercy seat. To imagine a nomadic people wandering the harsh wilderness for 4 decades, building such an ornate and precise masterpiece from scratch using rudimentary tools seems a daunting, almost miraculous task. For this reason, tradition holds that God bestowed divine skill upon a single chosen craftsman, empowering him with the abilities necessary to complete the Ark to exact specifications. Over time, the Ark came to be seen as more than just a container for the 10 Commandments. It became a vessel of divine intervention. As the Israelites moved toward the land of Canaan, the Ark supposedly aided them in supernatural ways. One of the most famous accounts tells of the Ark halting the flow of the Jordan River, allowing the Israelites to cross its dry bed. In battle, it was believed to bring God's wrath upon their enemies, ensuring victory. However, its immense power was not without risk. When the Ark was stolen by adversaries, legend has it that plagues, disease, and death followed the thieves, forcing them to return it. The Ark's journey continued as the Israelites settled and established their society. After a time in Shiloh, the Ark was moved by King David and later entrusted to his son Solomon, who placed it in the Holy of Holies within the First Temple in Jerusalem. There, it remained until it vanished. Around 587 BC, during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem, the Ark disappeared from historical record. No definitive account of its fate was ever documented, and from that point forward, the Ark of the Covenant transitioned from a sacred artifact to a sacred mystery. Since then, scholars, theologians, and adventurers alike have speculated on the Ark's final resting place. One of the most compelling and widely accepted theories is that it resides in Ethiopia, specifically within the St. Mary of Zion Cathedral in Aksum. According to this belief, the Ark was taken to Ethiopia for safekeeping and remains there to this day, watched over by a single monk known as the Guardian. This individual devotes his life to protecting the Ark, and only he is permitted to view it. Despite the cathedral's claims, no independent verification or scientific examination has been allowed, leaving scholars and believers to rely on faith, oral tradition, and circumstantial evidence. Other theories abound. The second book of Maccabees claims that the prophet Jeremiah hid the ark in a cave on Mount Nebo and that it would not be rediscovered until the time of God's choosing. According to this view, the ark's reappearance would herald an era of divine mercy and spiritual awakening. Some theologians maintain that the ark will be revealed only with the arrival of the Messiah, a moment prophesied to coincide with the redemption of the righteous and the ushering in of a new divine age. Others take a more apocalyptic approach, suggesting the ark will only return during the final days of the world, serving as a celestial sign of God's final judgment. Dozens of residents in the Philippines have just reported today that millions of fish have made their way on land, which has caused many to suggest that something big could be about to happen. Oddly enough, the event which happened on the 7th of January sparked confusion for those who witnessed it, with many saying that this wasn't triggered by a predator in the area. Various videos and photographs were taken, which showed the fish desperately trying to make their way on land. Residents who live close to the area reported on social media that animals have been acting strange throughout the area, further adding that it's not just marine life that has been displaying odd behaviors. Birds, for example, have been seen flying to higher ground, with one resident saying that mammals have also been observed doing this, and it's led some to suggest that something big could be about to happen. Intriguingly, there is compelling anecdotal evidence that indicates certain animals, such as fish, may possess an inherent capacity to detect and anticipate natural calamities. Although the precise mechanisms behind this phenomenon are still not fully grasped, it is plausible that fish have the ability to perceive subtle environmental cues or changes in atmospheric pressure that serve as telltale signs of impending disasters, such as earthquakes or tsunamis. When it comes to the remarkable ability of fish to sense impending natural disasters, an intriguing aspect emerges, suggesting a connection between these animals and the premonition of catastrophic events. In this intriguing hypothetical situation, it is proposed that fish have the extraordinary ability to perceive an imminent natural calamity, like a tsunami, and instinctively, they react by swimming onto dry land, seeking refuge from the devastating repercussions that such an event may bring. Although this notion is purely speculative and lacks concrete evidence, it introduces a fascinating dimension to the intricate interplay between animals and their surroundings, expanding our understanding of their adaptive behaviors and the profound connections they share with their environments. Evidence abounds of animals, fish, birds, reptiles, and insects exhibiting strange behavior anywhere from weeks to seconds before an earthquake. However, despite extensive research, we are still unable to fully comprehend and predict the consistent and dependable patterns of behavior that occur before seismic events. Additionally, there is a lack of understanding regarding the underlying mechanism that would explain the occurrence of such patterns. A social media user recently shared an interesting observation regarding their koi pond. They noted that one day, while gazing at their beloved fish, they noticed an intriguing behavior. The fish seemed to be swimming tirelessly in circles, captivating the observer's attention for hours on end. In the early part of March, an incident took place where she recounted that within a few days, her residing area experienced the impact of an earthquake measuring 4 on the magnitude scale. The occurrence left a significant impact, causing both physical and emotional upheaval in the region. China, positioned on the Pacific Ring of Fire, finds itself situated in a region highly susceptible to seismic activity and earthquakes. This geographical location exposes the country to frequent tremors and geological disturbances. The Pacific Ring of Fire is an expansive region that constitutes a circular belt encircling the Pacific Ocean. This region is renowned for its notable predisposition towards heightened seismic activity, including frequent earthquakes, along with a propensity for volcanic eruptions. China is located in a region where the Eurasian Plate and the Indian Plate meet, forming a boundary between these two significant tectonic plates of the Earth's crust. This geological position makes China highly susceptible to seismic activity and geological phenomena. The convergence and impact of these two tectonic plates have given rise to an intricate network of fault lines that traverse across China, giving way to a recurrent occurrence of seismic events. Yes, earthquakes occur frequently in China. However, the nation has taken significant initiatives to reduce their adverse effects. The measures implemented to mitigate the impact of earthquakes encompass a variety of strategies. Fish have the ability to be driven towards land when faced with abrupt and significant transformations in their underwater surroundings. These environmental disruptions, such as sudden fluctuations in water temperature, levels of oxygen, or the density of pollutants, can create inhospitable conditions in their aquatic habitats. Consequently, fish may opt to temporarily inhabit land as a strategy to cope with and adjust to these modified circumstances. This adaptation allows them to find temporary refuge and seek a more suitable environment until their original habitats stabilize. In these cases, venturing onto land becomes a survival mechanism for fish, enabling them to navigate and respond effectively to the challenging alterations in their aquatic ecosystems. When faced with rising temperatures that result in a lack of oxygen or the rapid growth of harmful algal blooms in aquatic ecosystems, fish may resort to migrating to land for short periods. This migration is driven by an urgent necessity to adapt and survive the increasingly deteriorating conditions in their aquatic habitats. During their temporary stays on land, fish seek out oxygen-rich environments and alternative food sources, enabling them to evade the challenges of their compromised aquatic homes. This man just posted an interesting photograph to Reddit, stating that they found a metal obelisk in the middle of the woods. The image has been liked tens of thousands of times and has been shared across social media, with people giving their opinions on what they think it is and how it got there. Interestingly, those who saw the image said that it could have been left over from the monolith craze that happened a few years back. In an era dominated by technological advancements and the free flow of information, the emergence of the enigmatic metallic monoliths captivated the entire world. Beginning in the latter part of 2020, these intriguing structures started appearing in remote and secluded locations across the globe, igniting a sense of wonder, curiosity, and a whirlwind of speculation. Standing as silent sentinels in disparate landscapes, from the deserts of Utah to the forests of Romania, these monoliths challenged our understanding of art, science, and the boundaries of human exploration. These enigmatic structures became a symbol of mystery and fascination, capturing the imagination of people worldwide. Their sudden appearance in such remote and unexplored areas left experts puzzled and eager to unravel their secrets. With their sleek metal exterior and minimalist design, the monoliths became a subject of great contemplation. The fascinating occurrence first came to light in November 2020, when a helicopter crew engaged in a routine wildlife survey stumbled upon an extraordinary sight in the secluded desert of southeastern Utah, USA. Emanating an enchanting aura, they came across an imposing 10-foot-tall metallic monolith glistening in the sunlight. This remarkable find seemed to have materialized out of thin air, reminiscent of science fiction tales and the enigmatic monolithic structures depicted in the iconic film 2001: A Space Odyssey. This unexpected discovery captivated the world's imagination, piquing our curiosity about its origins and purpose, and sparking speculations about extraterrestrial involvement and unknown forces at play. The discovery of the Utah monolith created a worldwide craze as people across the globe became aware of its existence through the rapid spread of information on social media platforms and various news outlets. The intrigue surrounding its origins and purpose only served to intensify the attention it received.